The stars shimmered coldly on the viewing deck of Harmony Point, the massive space station that served as the diplomatic center for the 17 species of the Galactic Confederation. Ambassador Kelix stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his scale-covered skin reflecting the distant light of unfamiliar suns. His large, multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly as he processed the devastating news playing across the holographic display. Another world had fallen to the Void Harbingers. The 4th this month. Ambassador, the Council has gathered for the emergency session, said his aide, a young Vesperian whose scales had not yet darkened to the deep blue of maturity. Kelix nodded gravely. I will attend momentarily. When the aide departed, Kelix allowed himself a moment of undiplomatic emotion. His tail thumped against the viewing deck floor in frustration. The Vesperians had been spacefaring for over 2,000 years, and in all that time, they had never encountered a threat like the Harbingers. No one had. The council chamber was already filled with the representatives of the 17 species when Kelix arrived. The circular room hummed with worried conversation in dozens of languages, though the universal translators embedded in the chamber walls ensured everyone understood each other perfectly. The fear, however, needed no translation. Elder Sifax of the Quarians sat silently in his hover chair, his ancient crystalline body glimmering under the chamber lights. The Quarians were among the oldest species in the Confederation, and Sifax rarely spoke during council meetings. He had been present for over 400 years, mostly observing. The session will come to order, announced the council leader, a tall, willowy Naltharian whose skin changed colors with her emotions. Currently, she displayed a worried gray-green. Admiral Lorath will present the military assessment. Admiral Lorath stepped forward. The stocky Exilian military commander's exoskeleton clicked nervously as he activated the central hologram. A three-dimensional map of Confederation space appeared, with alarming red zones marking Harbinger-controlled territories. The situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections, Lorath began, his mandibles twitching. The battle for the Krillian homeworld lasted just 6 hours. Our most advanced battle group was obliterated within minutes of engagement. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. The Krillians were known for their defensive capabilities. If they had fallen so quickly. The Void Harbingers employ technology centuries beyond our understanding, Lorath continued. Their ships phase through our defensive shields. Their weapons disable our vessels without destroying them, allowing them to board and harvest the crews. Ambassador Kelix felt his stomach clench. The reports of what happened to captured Confederation citizens were too horrible to contemplate. What of the evacuation efforts? Asked the Naltharian council leader. Ongoing, but increasingly difficult, Lorath replied. At the current rate of Harbinger advancement, we estimate 53 more. Systems will fall within the next 30 days. The Confederation as we know it will cease to exist within 3 months. Silence fell over the chamber, heavy and suffocating. Surely there must be something we can do, said Kelix, stepping forward. Some technology we haven't deployed. Some alliance we haven't considered. Admiral Lorath's compound eyes fixed on Kelix. Ambassador, I assure you the combined defense forces have exhausted every conventional and unconventional option. We've even attempted to communicate with the Harbingers to no avail. They do not respond to any transmission on any frequency. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices, each representative offering increasingly desperate suggestions. Some proposed mass evacuation to the unknown regions beyond Confederation space. Others suggested surrendering and hoping for mercy. A few even recommended a suicidal all-out attack with planet-killer weapons that had been banned for centuries. Silence. The word was spoken softly, yet it cut through the chaos like a blade. All eyes turned to Elder Sifax, who had not addressed the full council in over 50 years. The ancient Quarian's crystalline form pulsed with inner light as he continued. There is one option we have not considered. The council leader's skin shifted to a curious yellow. Please share your wisdom, Elder. In the forbidden sectors of what you call the Sol system dwells a species so feared that our ancestors collectively agreed to quarantine their entire region of space. Calyx felt a chill run through his body. He recognized the reference immediately. You speak of the humans. Yes. Elder Syphax confirmed, his voice like shifting gravel. The species that forced us to create our only permanent quarantine zone. The council chamber erupted again, this time in protests. The quarantine has stood for 3 centuries for good reason. They are barbarians, unpredictable. Would we invite a disease to cure an infection? Elder Syphax waited patiently for the outcry to subside. When silence returned, he spoke again. I was present when the quarantine decision was made. I voted in favor of it. The humans of that era were indeed dangerous, violent, territorial, and advancing their technology at an alarming rate. Then why would you suggest this madness? Demanded the Axelian representative. Because, said Syphax, the humans possess the one quality that might save us all, the very quality that made us fear them. They are warriors, without equal. Admiral Lorath stepped forward. With respect, Elder, warriors alone will not defeat the Void Harbingers. We have warriors. What we lack is technology. You misunderstand, Syphax replied. Humans do not merely fight. They study war as an art form. They adapt with frightening speed. And most importantly, they have evolved through conflict. Their history is written in blood and fire, yet they survived and thrived. They are the only species I know that might comprehend the Harbinger's way of thinking. Ambassador Calyx moved to the center of the chamber. Even if what you say is true, Elder, how can we be sure the humans would help us? We abandoned them to their own fate centuries ago. We did not abandon them, Syphax corrected. We contained them, yes, but we also protected them. No Confederation species has interfered with their development. They have been free to evolve in their own way. The council leader's skin had shifted to a thoughtful blue. And what way is that, Elder? What have your observations told you about their current state? Our long-range monitoring suggests they have unified their planet, established colonies throughout their solar system, and developed faster than light travel, Syphax answered. They have advanced considerably but appear to have turned much of their legendary aggression inward, toward exploration and expansion rather than conquest. Calyx considered this. So they might be civilized enough to reason with, yet still possess the warrior instinct we need. Precisely, said Syphax. Left with no choice, we must call upon the most feared species in the galaxy. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives contemplated this desperate proposal. The holographic display continued to show the advancing red zone of Harbinger control, creeping inexorably toward the heart of Confederation space. Finally, the council leader spoke. We will put it to a vote, but first, who would volunteer to make contact with these humans? Calyx surprised himself by raising his hand. I will go. The Vesperians were among the strongest advocates for the quarantine. It seems fitting that we should be the ones to break it. I will accompany Ambassador Calyx, added Admiral Lorath. If we are to discuss military alliance, a military perspective will be needed. The council leader nodded. Very well. The council will vote on Elder Syphax's proposal to contact the human species and request their aid against the Void Harbingers. The vote was taken. The outcome was not unanimous, but the majority was clear. Desperation had overcome fear. Calyx looked out at the stars once more after the council adjourned. Somewhere out there, on a blue-green planet circling an unremarkable yellow star, lived a species that might save them all, or hasten their destruction. Within 24 hours, a diplomatic vessel would depart for the edge of human space. For better or worse, the quarantine was about to end. The diplomatic vessel Celestial Messenger drifted at the edge of the Sol system, just beyond the invisible line that marked the human quarantine zone. Ambassador Calyx stood on the bridge, his scaled hands clasped tightly behind his back. The journey had taken 12 standard days, during which 3 more Confederation systems had fallen to the Void Harbingers. Are the transmitters ready? Calyx asked, turning to Admiral Lorath. The Axelian officer nodded, his exoskeleton clicking softly as he moved. "Yes, Ambassador. We've prepared a standard diplomatic greeting in the human language called English. Our records indicate it was their most widespread language when the quarantine was established. And if they no longer speak it? The message contains mathematical and visual components that any spacefaring civilization should understand," Lorath replied. "If they choose to respond at all." Commander Vrex, the ship's security chief and the third member of their contact team, looked uncomfortable. The burly Draconid's leathery wings twitched nervously against his back. "I still think this is a mistake," Vrex rumbled. "My ancestors fought against the humans. The stories of their ferocity are taught to every hatchling." Calyx turned his multifaceted eyes toward Vrex. "Those conflicts occurred over 3 centuries ago, Commander. Species evolve, and regardless of your concerns, the Council has made its decision." Admiral Lorath stepped between them. "The message is ready to transmit, Ambassador." Calyx took a deep breath, filling his secondary lung sacs. "Send it." The message was simple, a greeting, an identification of themselves as representatives of the Galactic Confederation, and a request for peaceful communication. They attached basic astronomical coordinates and universal mathematical constants to establish a common reference frame. Then they waited. They did not wait long. "Ambassador, we're receiving a response," reported the communications officer, her tentacles working swiftly across the control panel. It's in perfect Confederation standard." Calyx blinked in surprise. "How is that possible?" "The quarantine has been absolute." "Playing the message," the officer said. A flat screen materialized in the center of the bridge. On it appeared a human face, a female, Calyx believed, though his knowledge of human biology was limited. She had short hair the color of space itself, and eyes like the blue oceans that covered much of the human homeworld. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Confederation. This is Captain Kate Lawson of the Earth Alliance vessel GES Intrepid. We've been expecting you." Calyx exchanged shocked glances with Admiral Lorath. "Expecting us?" Calyx finally managed. The human's face displayed what Calyx recognized as a smile, though he knew from historical records that the expression could indicate anything from pleasure to aggression in humans. "We've been monitoring Confederation communications for decades," Captain Lawson explained. "Your encryption is, well, let's just say it's different from ours. When we detected your approach, we dispatched to meet you." "Where are you?" "Admiral," Lorath asked, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Captain Lawson's smile widened. "Look to your starboard." The bridge crew rushed to the viewing ports on the right side of the ship. At first they saw nothing but empty space. Then, as if emerging from invisibility itself, a vessel appeared. It was sleek, dark, and approximately 3 times the size of the Celestial Messenger. "Impossible," whispered Commander Vrex. "Our sensors detected nothing." "As I said," Captain Lawson continued from the screen, "we've made some advancements since you last checked in on us. Now, am I correct in assuming this isn't a routine visit? Your message hinted at some urgency." Calyx stepped forward. "Captain Lawson, we represent the 17 species of the Galactic Confederation. I am Ambassador Calyx of the Vesperians. With me are Admiral Lorath of the Exilian Defense Force and Commander Vrex, our security chief." "A pleasure," Lawson nodded. "Though you haven't answered my question." "You are correct," Calyx admitted. "This is not a routine visit. The Confederation faces an existential threat. We need human help." Captain Lawson's expression became serious. "I see. And after 300 years of quarantine, you've suddenly decided humans are worth talking to?" "The quarantine was established for complex reasons," Calyx began. "I'm sure it was," Lawson interrupted. "But this conversation should involve people with higher authority than either of us possess. I invite you and a small delegation to board the Intrepid. We can transport you to Earth to meet with Alliance leadership." Admiral Lorath stepped forward. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" humans have historical reasons to bear grudges against several Confederation species. Captain Lawson's expression remained neutral. Admiral, if we wanted to destroy your ship, we could have done so before you even knew we were here. But that's not how we operate these days. You're here because you need something. We're offering to listen. The choice is yours. After a brief, tense discussion, Calix, Lorath, and Vrex agreed to accept the invitation. Within an hour, they stood in the shuttle bay of their own ship, preparing to board a small human transport vessel. Remember, Calix told his companions, the fate of the Confederation may rest on the impression we make. Be diplomatic, regardless of how they receive us. The human shuttle that collected them was piloted by a pair of humans wearing blue uniforms. They introduced themselves as Lieutenant Greg Carter and Ensign Olivia Martinez. The aliens found the human craft surprisingly comfortable, with seating adjusted to accommodate their varied physiologies. We've studied Confederation biology, Lieutenant Carter explained when Vrex commented on this. We've been preparing for potential contact for generations. The journey to the human ship took only minutes. When they disembarked in the Intrepid shuttle bay, Calix was struck by two immediate observations. The ship was incredibly quiet compared to Confederation vessels, with only a faint hum of machinery, and it was manned by far fewer crew members than a Confederation ship of similar size would require. Captain Lawson greeted them personally in the shuttle bay. Up close, she was taller than Calix had expected, standing nearly 2 heads above him. "Welcome aboard the Intrepid," she said. "If you'll follow me, I've arranged quarters for you to rest and refresh yourselves. Then we can discuss your situation in more detail before departing for Earth." "You mentioned the Earth Alliance," Admiral Lorath said as they walked through the ship's corridors. "Has your species achieved planetary unification?" "About a century ago," Lawson replied. "Turns out having our system quarantined by aliens gave us a common cause. Nothing unites humans quite like an external challenge." Commander Vrex tensed. "Is that a threat?" Captain Lawson laughed, a sound that made all 3 aliens startle slightly. "Not at all, Commander. Just an observation about human nature. We're competitive, for better or worse." In the conference room, over a meal carefully, prepared to accommodate their alien biologies, the Confederation representatives explained the Void Harbinger threat. They shared footage of battles, destruction reports, and the terrifying speed of the enemy's advance. Captain Lawson's face grew increasingly grave as she reviewed the data. "And conventional weapons have no effect?" "None that we've found, Admiral," Lorath confirmed. "Their shielding technology renders our energy weapons useless, and their hulls resist our most powerful kinetic weapons." "And you've tried communicating with them?" "Every possible frequency and method," Calix said. "They never respond." Captain Lawson nodded slowly. "I'll need to transmit this information to Earth immediately. The Alliance Council will want to review everything before we arrive." "How long until we reach Earth?" Calix asked. "At standard speed, about 3 days," Captain Lawson replied. "But given the urgency, I'll authorize emergency protocols." "We can be there in 10 hours. 3 sets of alien eyes widened in shock. "That's impossible," Admiral Lorath stammered. "The distance..." Captain Lawson smiled again, but this time there was no warmth in it. "Admiral, you've kept us in a box for 300 years. Did you really think we'd spend that time sitting idle? We humans don't handle confinement well. It tends to make us innovative." Earth was nothing like the historical records had described. As the human transport descended through fluffy white clouds, Ambassador Calix pressed his scaled face against the viewing port in wonder. The planet below was a beautiful tapestry of blue oceans, green forests, and sprawling silver cities that seemed to blend harmoniously with the natural landscape. "Your world has healed," Calix remarked to Captain Lawson, who sat beside him during the descent. "Our old records showed extensive environmental damage." Captain Lawson nodded. "We nearly destroyed ourselves before we got it right. Sometimes I think the quarantine was the best thing that could have happened to us. It forced us to look inward, to fix our own problems, rather than spreading them to the stars." The transport landed on a platform atop a gleaming tower in a city called New Geneva. Calix, Admiral Lorath, and Commander Vrex followed Captain Lawson through wide corridors filled with humans going about their business. Many stopped to stare at the alien visitors, but none showed fear or hostility, only curiosity. They seem very calm about our presence, Admiral Lorath observed, his mandibles clicking softly. Have your people been prepared for this meeting? In a way, Captain Lawson replied. We've known about the Confederation for generations. Our schools teach about the 17 known species, though I admit our information is limited, and we've had contact with a few other non-Confederation species who weren't bound by your quarantine rules. This news startled the delegation. Commander Vrex's wings flared slightly. You've had contact with others? Who? Captain Lawson smiled. That's a discussion for another time, Commander. We've arrived. They entered a large circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the sky above. In the center stood a round table where 5 humans were already seated. They rose as the visitors entered. Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, welcome to Earth, said a tall, gray-haired man who stepped forward to greet them. I am Alan Shepard, Director of the Earth Alliance. These are my colleagues from the Alliance Council. After introductions were made, everyone took seats around the table. Director Shepard wasted no time. Captain Lawson has transmitted the information about these void harbingers. Our analysts have been reviewing it since your departure from the edge of our system. The situation is indeed grave. Then you understand why we've come, said Kellex. The Confederation needs humanity's help. Director Shepard's expression was serious. Before we discuss potential aid, Ambassador, there's something we need to understand. Why were we quarantined? Kellex glanced at his companions. This moment had been inevitable, but that didn't make it any less uncomfortable. The quarantine was established 312 years ago, following an incident with a species called the Drakari, Kellex began. They were not Confederation members but a client race of the Exilians. Admiral Lorath's exoskeleton clicked nervously as attention turned to him. The Drakari were under our protection, yes. They established a mining colony on a moon in what turned out to be your outer system. When human explorers discovered them, there was a misunderstanding. That's a diplomatic way to put it, said a human woman at the table. Our historical records show the Drakari attacked our survey team without provocation. That is correct, Lorath admitted. The Drakari were an aggressive species. They viewed your explorers as intruders and responded according to their nature. And then, prompted Director Shepard. Commander Vrex spoke up, his voice a low rumble. Then you humans showed us why you should be feared. Your response was overwhelming. Director Shepard nodded slowly. The Jupiter incident. We call it the First Contact War. The Drakari had never faced defeat, Vrex continued. When your military vessels arrived, they expected an easy victory. Instead, your forces not only repelled them but pursued them back to their homeworld. You were going to wipe them out completely, Kellex added. The Confederation intervened, establishing a buffer zone between human space and the rest of the galactic community. The quarantine was meant to be temporary, but as humans continued to develop faster and more powerful weapons, the Council voted to make it permanent. A silence fell over the room. The humans exchanged glances that Kellex couldn't interpret. Finally, Director Shepard spoke. Thank you for your honesty, Ambassador. The truth is, we've suspected something like this for decades. Our deep space monitoring detected the quarantine beacons long ago. Then why didn't you break through? Asked Admiral Lorath. Your technology clearly could have overcome our containment measures. A younger human man with dark skin and keen eyes leaned forward. Because we respected your boundaries, Admiral. We figured you had your reasons for keeping us isolated. And truthfully, it gave us time to mature as a species. And develop some interesting technology along the way, added. Captain Lawson. Director Shepard pressed a button on the table. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing what Kellex recognized as human warships. They were sleek, predatory-looking vessels, unlike the more utilitarian designs of Confederation ships. We've maintained defensive capabilities, Shepard explained. Earth has been unified for a century, but human nature still includes caution. We've been watching the movement of these void harbingers for some time. They appeared at the edge of our long-range sensors about 2 years ago. This revelation shocked the Confederation delegation. You knew about them before they attacked us? Calyx asked. We detected unusual energy signatures, Shepard clarified. We didn't know what they were, only that they were powerful and moving with purpose. When they bypassed our system and headed toward Confederation space, we increased our alert status and began preparations. Admiral Loreth's compound eyes fixed on Shepard. Preparations for what exactly? For the possibility that whatever was coming might eventually threaten Earth, Shepard replied simply. And perhaps for the day you would come asking for our help. He gestured, and the hologram changed to show additional ship designs, ground, forces, and weapon systems that made even the military-minded Lorath stare in fascination. I won't pretend we're doing this purely out of the goodness of our hearts, Shepard continued. The Void Harbingers represent a threat to all sentient life. If they've conquered half the Confederation already, it's only a matter of time before they turn their attention to Earth. Calyx felt a mixture of hope and unease. The humans were clearly advanced beyond what the Confederation had anticipated, but would they be advanced enough? Will you help us? He asked simply. Director Shepard looked at each of his fellow council members. They all nodded in turn. We will, he said. The Earth Alliance will join your fight against the Void Harbingers. But we do this as equals, not as your secret weapon to be deployed and then contained again when the crisis passes. What are your terms? Calyx asked. The permanent end of the quarantine, Shepard replied without hesitation. Full membership in the Galactic Confederation with all associated rights, and complete technological exchange. We share our advancements with you. You share yours with us. The three aliens exchanged glances. Such terms went far beyond their authority, but given the circumstances, we cannot officially agree to those terms without council approval, Calyx said carefully. But I believe they will accept. We have little choice. Very well, said Shepard, rising to his feet. We'll prepare a delegation to return with you to the Confederation. In the meantime, Captain Lawson will show you our defense preparations. I think you'll find that humanity has not been idle during our time in isolation. As they left the council chamber, Calyx found himself walking beside Director Shepard. There's something I don't understand, the ambassador said quietly. The historical records suggest humans were violent, fractious, and self-destructive. Yet, you've built all of this. He gestured at the peaceful advanced city around them. Shepard smiled slightly. We're still human, Ambassador. We still argue, compete, and sometimes fight. But we've learned to channel those traits constructively, and when faced with an external threat, he glanced meaningfully at Calyx. We become quite unified in our response. Let us hope that response is enough against the Harbingers, Calyx replied. It will be, said Shepard with a confidence that Calyx found both reassuring and terrifying. Because now, they've given us something to fight for beyond ourselves. The arrival of human ships at Harmony Point caused a sensation. Ambassador Calyx stood beside Director Shepard on the observation deck of the massive space station as 5 human vessels moved into position nearby. The sleek, dark ships made the colorful Confederation vessels look bulky and outdated by comparison. Your ships are quite intimidating, Calyx observed. Shepard nodded. Form follows function, Ambassador. We designed them to be fast and hard to detect, much like Earth predators. Behind them, members of the Confederation Council muttered among themselves. The emergency session had been called as soon as the human delegation arrived. Some council members were clearly uncomfortable with the humans' presence, while others seemed hopeful. All were desperate. Elder Syphax's crystalline form glowed softly as he hovered forward. Welcome to Harmony Point, Director. Shepard. I am Elder Syphax of the Quarians, the one who suggested breaking our quarantine, Shepard said with a slight smile. I should thank you. Only time will tell if it was wisdom or folly, Syphax replied. But we have little time. 3 more systems have fallen while your delegation traveled here. The council chamber was more crowded than Calyx had ever seen. Representatives from all 17 Confederation species were present, along with military advisors and diplomatic staff. The human delegation, consisting of Director Shepard, Captain Lawson, and 5 other specialists, seemed remarkably calm amidst the alien assembly. Admiral Lorath presented the human proposal to the Council. The terms were straightforward. Humanity would join the fight against the Void Harbingers in exchange for the permanent end of the quarantine, full membership in the Confederation, and complete technological exchange. "This is outrageous," exclaimed the Brellan representative, his fur standing on end. "The humans were quarantined for good reason. We cannot simply welcome them as equals." "Would you prefer extinction, Counselor?" asked Kellex quietly. "The ambassador speaks wisely," said Elder. "Syphax, pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." The debate lasted for hours. Some council members feared that human involvement would only escalate the conflict. Others worried that ending the quarantine would eventually lead to human domination of the Confederation. But as reports of another system falling to the Harbingers came in, resistance crumbled. In the end, the vote was 15-2 in favor of accepting the human terms. Director Shepard stepped forward when the decision was announced. "The Earth Alliance appreciates your trust. Now let's get to work. My military advisor, General Chris Jordan, will outline our initial strategy." A broad-shouldered human with short gray hair took center stage. He activated a holographic display showing the current position of Harbinger forces. "The first thing we need to understand is their pattern of attack," General Jordan began. "From what we've observed, the Harbingers aren't just conquering at random. They're cutting the Confederation into isolated sectors, preventing unified resistance." He highlighted several star systems on the map. "These are their next likely targets based on their movement pattern. We propose a joint human Confederation strike force to intercept them at this choke point." He indicated a narrow corridor of space between 2 dense stellar clusters. Admiral Lorath stepped forward. "With respect, General, we've tried direct confrontation. Their technology is superior, which is why we won't be fighting conventionally," Jordan replied. "Captain Kelly Scott will explain." A lean, intense-looking human woman with auburn hair joined him at the display. "The Void Harbingers have 3 key advantages: superior shields, faster-than-light communication, and some kind of energy absorption technology that neutralizes your weapons. We've been analyzing the data from your previous engagements, and we believe we've identified weaknesses in all 3 systems." The council chamber grew quiet as Captain Scott outlined a daring plan. Human scientists had developed shield-penetrating munitions based on phase-shifting technology. They had also created communication jammers that might isolate Harbinger ships from their command structure. Most importantly, they had designed new weapons that the Harbinger's energy absorption systems shouldn't be able to counter. "These are untested against actual Harbinger technology," Captain Scott admitted. "But the principles are sound. We'll need to combine our forces and adapt as we learn more about the enemy." "How quickly can we implement these measures?" asked the council leader. "We've brought the necessary equipment to outfit 20 Confederation ships with our technology," General Jordan answered. "It will take approximately 48 hours. We'll also deploy 10 of our own vessels for the initial confrontation." "So, few?" questioned Admiral Lorath. "Quality over quantity, Admiral," Jordan replied. "And we're not committing our entire fleet until we know more about the enemy's capabilities." The planning continued for hours, with human specialists working directly with Confederation military leaders. Kellex observed with growing hope as the 2 groups began to find common ground, sharing information and ideas freely. He noticed Director Shepard standing alone near a viewing port and joined him there. "Your military people work quickly," Kellex remarked. "We've had time to prepare," Shepard replied. "And motivation. The Harbingers may not have attacked us directly yet, but we recognize the threat they represent." "What if your weapons don't work against them?" Kellex asked, voicing his deepest fear. Shepard turned to face him. "Then we'll try something else. And if that fails, we'll try again. Humans are persistent, Ambassador. It's perhaps our defining trait." "More than your capacity for violence?" Kellex asked before he could stop himself. Rather than taking offense, Shepard laughed softly. Our capacity for violence is just one expression of our persistence. We don't give up easily, whether we're fighting, building, or learning. 3 days later, the Joint Strike Force departed Harmony Point. 30 ships, 20 Confederation vessels retrofitted with human technology, and 10 human warships set course for the Thalassian Corridor, where Harbinger forces were expected to appear within a week. Ambassador Kellex, as the Confederation's diplomatic representative, joined Captain Lawson aboard the human flagship, the GES Dauntless. The massive vessel was a marvel of engineering, with automated systems that allowed it to operate with less than a quarter of the crew a Confederation ship of similar size would require. Our ships are designed to keep fighting even if we lose most of the crew, Lawson explained as she showed Kellex around. Redundancy and automation are our watchwords. You design even your peacetime vessels for war, Kellex observed. We design them for survival, Lawson corrected. There's a difference. 6 days into their journey, the sensors detected Harbinger ships entering the Thalassian Corridor. The fleet immediately transitioned to battle stations. 5 Harbinger vessels detected, reported the sensor officer on the Dauntless. Standard configuration, similar to those in previous engagements. All ships, assume formation Alpha. General, Jordan ordered from the command center. Remember the plan? Jammers first, then targeted strikes on their propulsion systems. We want to disable, not destroy if possible. We need to capture their technology. Kellex watched from the auxiliary bridge as the human ships moved with precision into attack positions, the Confederation vessels following their lead. The display showed the Harbinger ships continuing forward, apparently unaware of or unconcerned by the waiting fleet. They're not changing course, Captain Lawson noted. Either they don't see us, or they're not worried about us. 30 seconds. To jammer range, announced the tactical officer. Kellex held his breath. This was humanity's first test against the Void Harbingers. Everything depended on this initial engagement. Jammers activated, reported the tactical officer. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Harbinger vessels suddenly broke formation, their movements becoming erratic. It's working, Lawson exclaimed. Their coordination is disrupted. All ships commence attack pattern Theta, ordered General Jordan. Target their propulsion systems. The battle had begun. Humanity's first stand against the Void Harbingers was underway, and with it, the first real hope the Confederation had felt in months. The battle in the Thalassian Corridor lasted just under 3 hours. When it ended, 3 Harbinger vessels had been disabled, 1 destroyed, and 1 had escaped. The joint fleet had lost 7 Confederation ships and 2 human vessels. Despite these losses, the mood aboard the GES Dauntless was cautiously optimistic. We've proven they can be beaten, Captain Lawson said as she, Ambassador Kellex, General Jordan, and Admiral Lorath reviewed the battle data in the ship's war room. The jammers worked exactly as intended. Once we cut off their communication, they couldn't coordinate their defense. And the new weapons? Asked Admiral Lorath. Mixed results, General Jordan replied, pointing to the holographic display. The phase shift torpedoes penetrated their shields about 60% of the time. The energy disruptor beams were less effective, only about 30% penetration rate. But we learned a lot. We'll make adjustments. Kellex studied the captured Harbinger vessel that was now surrounded by Confederation and human ships. Have we learned anything from the ship we boarded? A human scientist named Olivia Martinez activated a different display. The Harbinger technology is strange. Their ships appear to be partially organic with systems that self-repair. We haven't been able to access their main computer core yet, but we did find this. The display showed an image of what appeared to be a control room. In the center was a chair-like structure, but what it contained made Kellex's scales ripple with shock. That's acrylion, he said, identifying the species of the creature connected to the chair by dozens of tubes and wires. But they've been changed somehow. It seems the Harbingers aren't piloting their own ships, Martinez explained. They're using captives from conquered worlds, somehow connecting them directly to the ship's systems. That's why they've been taking prisoners rather than simply destroying populations, Admiral Lorath realized. They're harvesting them for this. The news of the victory spread quickly throughout the Confederation. For the first time since the Harbinger invasion began, people allowed themselves to hope. More joint operations were planned, with Confederation shipyards working around the clock to modify vessels with human technology. A month after the first battle, Calyx found himself once again on Harmony Point, attending a strategic planning session. The wall displays showed a very different situation than before. The Harbinger advance had been halted in 3 sectors, and in 2 areas, they had actually been pushed back. "We're making progress," Director Shepard told the assembled representatives. "But the Harbingers are adapting. They've modified their shields to be more resistant to our phase shift weapons, and they've changed their communication protocols to be harder to jam." "How are they adapting so quickly?" asked the Brellan Council member, who had become much more supportive of the human alliance after his home system was liberated. "We believe they have a central intelligence directing their forces," explained Captain Scott. "The ships we've captured and the patterns we've observed suggest they're all extensions of a single entity or collective. That's why our strategy needs to change." She activated a holographic display showing a distant star system near the edge of Confederation space. "Our scouts have identified unusual energy readings from this system. We believe it's their command center." "You're proposing a direct assault on their headquarters?" asked Elder Syphax. "Not quite," General Jordan replied. "A large fleet would be detected long before arrival. Instead, we're suggesting a small strike team aboard our fastest stealth vessel. The mission would be to infiltrate their command structure and plant a virus in their network." "What kind of virus?" Calyx asked. It was Olivia Martinez who answered. "We've been studying the organic-mechanical interface in the captured ships. The Harbingers use a form of quantum entanglement for their faster-than-light communication. We've developed a program that should disrupt this entanglement, essentially cutting off all Harbinger ships from their central command." "Would that destroy them?" asked Admiral Lorath. "More likely paralyze them temporarily," Martinez replied. "But it would give our fleets time to move in and disable their forces systematically." The plan was audacious but seemed to offer their best chance at victory. After much debate, the Council approved it. 3 days later, the human stealth ship Ghost departed with a mixed crew of humans and Confederation specialists. Ambassador Calyx had volunteered to join them, feeling a need to see this war through to its conclusion. The Ghost's journey to the suspected Harbinger Command Center took 12 days. The ship lived up to its name, slipping past Harbinger patrols undetected. As they approached the system's outer planets, they finally saw what they were up against. The Harbinger Command Center was a massive structure orbiting a gas giant, a space station larger than Harmony Point, surrounded by dozens of warships. "How do we get past all of that?" Calyx asked as the crew studied the sensor readings. Captain Jack Ryan, the Ghost's commander, pointed to a schematic. "There's a debris field from a destroyed moon that we can hide in. From there, we can launch a smaller craft that should avoid their detection grid." The infiltration team consisted of 6 humans and 3 Confederation members, including Calyx. They boarded the small craft, barely larger than a shuttle, and detached from the Ghost. "Remember, our only goal is to reach their central processor and upload the virus," Captain Ryan reminded them. "We avoid engagement if possible." The approach was tense but successful. Using the debris field as cover and employing the ship's advanced stealth systems, they managed to dock with the Harbinger station at an emergency airlock that appeared to be rarely used. Inside, the station was unlike anything Calyx had ever seen. The corridors seemed partially grown rather than built, with pulsing light running through conduits that resembled veins. The team moved carefully, avoiding what appeared to be automated drones that patrolled the passages. Using schematics derived from captured ships, they made their way toward what they believed to be the central processing chamber. What they found there stopped them in their tracks. The chamber was vast, with a glowing sphere suspended in its center. Around it, hundreds of captive beings from various species were connected to the sphere by the same sort of tubes and wires they had seen in the captured ships. "They're using them as living processors," whispered Martinez, checking her scanner. "The quantum entanglement network runs through their neural systems." Captain Ryan pointed to a control interface. That's where we need to upload the virus. As they moved toward it, something unexpected happened. The sphere pulsed brightly and a voice spoke, not aloud but directly into their minds. Evaluation protocols complete. Test subjects have exceeded expectations. The team froze in confusion. A figure materialized near the sphere, a tall, slender being with luminous skin and features that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "What's happening?" Kelix asked, his voice trembling. The being regarded them with eyes that contained galaxies. "You have passed the test, as you were always meant to. The Confederation alone would have failed. Humanity alone would have destroyed itself. Together, you have demonstrated the capacity for cooperation that is required." "Test? What test?" demanded Captain Ryan, his weapon still raised. "We are the precursors," the being explained. "We seed galaxies with life and return periodically to evaluate its progress. Those species that cannot overcome their differences in the face of extinction are deemed unworthy of continuing. Those that can evolve together earn the right to join the galactic community." Understanding dawned on Kelix. The Void Harbingers? They were never real? They were real, the precursor clarified. But they were our creation designed to test you. The captives you see are simulations, not actual beings. No real lives were lost in this evaluation. The revelation was staggering. The entire war had been an elaborate test. "What happens now?" asked Martinez. "Now you return to your people with knowledge. The quarantine of humanity ends. The Confederation expands. And we watch, as we always have, to see what you will become." As suddenly as it had appeared, the being vanished. The sphere dimmed, and the station around them began to change, its threatening aspect melting away to reveal more recognizable technology. "We need to get back to the ship," Captain Ryan said after a moment of shocked silence. "Everyone needs to know about this." As they made their way back to their vessel, Kelix walked beside Martinez. "Do you believe it?" he asked. "That it was all a test?" The human scientist considered this. "I believe that something far beyond our understanding has been watching us. Whether their intentions are as benevolent as they claim," she shrugged, "I suppose we'll find out." 3 weeks later, Ambassador Kelix stood with Director Shepard on Earth, watching as the formal treaty between humanity and the Confederation was signed. The Harbinger threat had disappeared as mysteriously as it had arrived, leaving behind only questions and a new alliance. "Do you think they'll test us again?" Kelix asked quietly. Shepard looked up at the stars visible through the transparent dome. "Almost certainly, but next time we'll face it together from the start." Kelix nodded, his scales reflecting the starlight. "Left with no choice, we called on the most feared species in the galaxy, and in doing so, we may have saved it."